A reading from the prophet Isaiah. Let me now sing of my friend's song concerning his vineyard. My friend had a vineyard on a fertile hillside. He spaded it, cleared it of stones, and planted the choicest vines. Within it he built a watchtower and hewed out a winepress. Then he looked for the crop of grapes, but what it yielded was wild grapes. Now, inhabitants of Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I had not done? Why, when I looked for the crop of grapes, did it bring forth wild grapes? Now I will let you know what I mean to do with my vineyard. Take away its hedge, give it to grazing, break through its wall, let it be trampled. Yes, I will make it a ruin. It shall not be pruned or hoed, but overgrown with thorns and briers. I will command the clouds not to send rain upon it. The vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the people of Judah are his cherished plant. He looked for judgment, but see, bloodshed, for justice, but hark, the outcry. The word of the Lord.
Our first reading for this Sunday comes from the prophet Isaiah. Again, the prophet Isaiah presents a parable about a vineyard and its loving and caring owner. Look at the way the owner worked so that the vineyard would be productive. He spaded it, cleared it of stones, and planted the choicest vines. Within it, he built a watchtower and hewed out a winepress. He looked for the crops on harvest day. And I guess any owner or worker who has invested so much, not only money or resources, but effort to make that vineyard really produce the best type of grapes would expect some sort of return for his effort. That is part of human enterprise, that's part of our human inclination. You put in so much work, then you would expect somehow a commensurate type of effect or fruit. But to the dismay of this owner of the vineyard, when he came to the vineyard in order to get his share of supposedly good grapes, what did he find? What the vineyard yielded was wild grapes. And it disappointed this vineyard. He was so disappointed, he asked, "What more was there to do for my vineyard that I had not done?" Instead of blaming the vineyard, look at the nobility of this owner, but he turned first to himself. Did I not do enough? Is there something else that I missed out on in doing so that this vineyard could produce the best grapes? Now, but what is this parable all about? What is this vineyard? According to the prophet Isaiah, the vineyard is the house of Israel. So the vineyard is God's people. And we know who the owner is. It is the Lord, who has done so much for this people. In fact, the Lord went through so much labor in order to give birth to this people that he will call his very own. And instead of using the imagery of birthing, here you find the imagery of cultivating, protecting, nurturing, so that the vineyard would produce much good fruit. But what did God see as the fruit of his labors for Israel? He saw outcry. He saw bloodshed. where he was expecting justice, peace, goodness. My dear brothers and sisters, this is a scandal that God, who has done everything for a people, would come back to see as though his efforts had meant nothing, as though his pouring out of love, mercy, compassion, righteousness, where all of that is taken as trash. And the fruit expected is in fact the contrary of the very action of God for his people. Dear brothers and sisters, we are part of that vineyard. We are part of the new Israel. And as we will see later, God will tend us to the point of sending his Son. But this is a good moment to reflect. What are the fruits that God will see in my life? Will the people around me recognize in me a portion of the vineyard of God? Or will they be scandalized to see we who profess to be followers of God, followers of Christ, producing fruits of corruption, hatred, injustice, not the fruit that is reflective of the labor of God for his vineyard? Let the first reading lead us to a deep, deep reflection.